There's been a long, there's long been the belief that the gospel accounts, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the man they portray, Jesus of Nazareth, are mythological in part or in whole. In fact, we encounter such beliefs already in the gospel accounts themselves and in the New Testament letters as well. We find as we read the gospel accounts, which I encourage you to be reading as we read through this book together, especially Mark's gospel account, because we deal with that verse by verse in Jesus and Myth. We find that Jesus' opponents, embodied especially in the religious leaders of Israel, opposed Jesus' identity, his claims to be the Messiah, and they viewed Jesus as a fraud, as myth, essentially. But even Jesus' own 12 disciples, the 12 apostles, initially refused to believe in Jesus and what the scriptures prophesied that he would achieve. So that when Jesus had risen from the dead, Luke recounts in his gospel account that the 12 responded to the claims that Jesus had resurrected in this way. We read in Luke 24:11, "But these words appeared in their sight as nonsense, and they wouldn't believe them." Now, this study of Jesus' relationship to myth is going to quickly get to the point of the claim that Jesus is mythological and subject that claim to focused scrutiny. Myth is a known quantity to us. We know that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. We know that the earth revolves around the sun at a rate of about 365 days per revolution. And we know that myth has a distinctive, predictable pattern. The pattern to which I'm referring is the combat myth or hero pattern, which is the arch myth type. There are many myths, many combat myths, combats between a hero god and a villain or monster god at the heart of tribes and their cultures all around the globe. But all of these combat myths have the same essential sequence of events, the same pattern of motifs and episodes. The names and places change, but the series of events and their meanings remain the same. As a result, we can subject the claim that Jesus is also mythological to scientific scrutiny. We can simply lay the record of Jesus' life found in the four gospel accounts beside the pattern of the combat myth and see if Jesus fits the pattern of myth or not. If Jesus' identity, words, and deeds conform to the pattern of the hero and or villain gods of myth, then we will have to conclude that yes, Jesus is also mythological. However, if we find that Jesus fails to conform to the pattern of myth, then we'll be forced to conclude that Jesus is not mythological. During Jesus' earthly ministry, he chose a man named Simeon to be his chief apostle, and he surnamed him Cephas, or Peter. And Apostle Peter knew that many people in his own day viewed Jesus as mythological, like the gods of the myths then believed by the Greeks and Romans and Egyptians and so forth. And in response, Apostle Peter wrote in his second letter, 2 Peter 2:16, he wrote this: "For we did not follow cleverly devised myths when we made known to you the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but we were eyewitnesses of his majesty." Peter was adamant that Jesus and the apostles' accounts and testimony to whom Jesus is are not based on the many combat myths popularly believed in the 1st century AD or any other time in human history. Apostle Peter didn't specify which gods in particular were being compared to Jesus by others, but when we look at the writings of early church fathers, for example Justin Martyr, who wrote in the 2nd century AD, we can see that it was appropriate for Peter's statement to be so general about this, since Justin Martyr compares Jesus not to one or two of the gods of myth, but to many. This shows that Justin and Peter were both making an absolute statement, that Jesus of Nazareth is not like any of the gods of myth. Yet Justin Martyr is happy to admit that there appear to be similarities at first glance. He writes, "When we say that the Word, who is the first birth of God, was produced without sexual union, and that he, Jesus Christ, our teacher, was crucified and died and rose again and ascended into heaven, we propound nothing different from what you, the pagan myth believers in Justin's audience, what you believe regarding those whom you esteem sons of Jupiter: Mercury, Asclepius, Bacchus, Hercules, the sons of Leda, Perseus, and Bellerophon." And Justin continues, "And what of the emperors, the Roman emperors who die among yourselves, and whom you deem worthy of deification?" And importantly, Justin remarks, "And what kinds of deeds are recorded of each of these reputed sons of Jupiter? For all reckon it an honorable thing to imitate the gods." So a few things on this quotation by Justin Martyr. He says, on the one hand, Jesus Christ is similar, it seems, to many sons of the many sons of Jupiter or Zeus, as well as the claims the myth believers of the day held concerning the Roman emperors, who also claimed to be sons of Jupiter or Zeus. They claimed to be gods and demanded worship as gods. So this is similar to Jesus insofar as Jesus is declared to be the Son of God. And so those many mythological gods make a similar claim, or similar claims are made about them as to their purported sonship of another mythological god, Jupiter or Zeus. And yet, Justin hints that there is a stark contrast between Jesus and all the other claimants, a difference beyond the identity of Jesus' Father and Jesus himself, which is the behavior of the mythological gods compared with Jesus. And Justin says that the myth culture is based upon deliberate imitation of the mythological gods. It's an honorable thing amongst the pagans who worship all of these gods of myth to imitate those gods in their behavior, supposedly. That's what they believed. And we'll see that the creator God of the Bible, incarnate as Jesus Christ, as recorded in the gospel accounts, the God of the Bible also demands that Adam's race imitate him. But there's a stark contrast between the behavior of Jesus and the behavior of all the gods and monsters of myth. So at this point, I'm going to offer a first discussion question, and we're going to have a discussion forum on each chapter available online. You're welcome to come and chat with me and with others as we study through Jesus and myth in this book and in this course. So the first discussion question for the forum, and I'll also post this to the forum, is why do the writers of the New Testament and early Christians reject the claim that Jesus is just another mythological god?